Joining me now is Alberta's Premier Jason Kenney. Welcome to the show, Premier.
Good to be here, Mercedes.
How is the situation out there in Alberta right now?
Well, first of all, the floods have largely abated in northern Alberta, although we're keeping a close eye on it. There's just been very high ice packs, ice jams on the Peace and Athabasca rivers in particular. What's just so unbelievably sad about this circumstance is that the city of Fort McMurray was hit so hard with much of the downtown underwater, and many homes that had just been rebuilt after the fires. Homes that were lost in the fire 4 years ago had been rebuilt and now underwater with enormous damage. And many of those folks lost their jobs because of the economic crisis here or because of COVID-related measures. And so it just seems like people in Fort McMurray in particular can't get a break. Obviously, across Alberta, we continue to be affected by the pandemic. We are moving towards phase one in our relaunch strategy. The good news is that I think we've fared much better than most with a much lower level of hospitalizations and ICU admissions on a per capita basis than most jurisdictions around the world. So we think we've got this, but we're going to have to stay vigilant.
Premier, can you walk me through a little bit of how you decided which parts of the economy to reopen and when?
The first phase, I say, will begin on May 14th, although there are some things that we've already begun opening this weekend. Provincial parks are being reopened, for example, golf courses, more outdoor recreation as an example. Mercedes, my view and that of our officials is that we cannot eliminate the risk of the coronavirus. What we have to do is to manage the risk. And the key factor in that, of course, is to keep the projected peak of hospitalizations well below the maximum capacity of our healthcare system. Right now, we have about 2,000 acute care beds available for COVID patients, but we only have about 90 people in those beds. So similarly on ICU, we have huge excess capacity, and we've done so well in stockpiling equipment that we've been able to share some of our surplus equipment with other Canadian provinces that were facing a tougher situation.
I know those provinces, including Ontario, where I am, have appreciated that generosity, but your province is in dire financial straits right now, Premier. Some are asking if this is the time to introduce a sales tax, a PST. Is that something you're looking at?
Well, let me say, right now, we're dealing with a double economic whammy. Really, obviously, the global coronavirus recession, and then the lowest oil prices in history. In the last couple of weeks, the price for Canadian oil has been at some points negative, below zero. Like literally, our producers have had to pay people to take away their energy. And this is all related to the global COVID recession, reducing demand for energy consumption. But it's also because this OPEC Plus, the Saudis and Russians in particular, actually and irresponsibly surged supply into this constrained demand environment, causing inventories to fill up and prices to crash. Those two factors on top of 5 years of tough economic times here, you're right, I'm expecting to see unemployment as high as 25% in this quarter. We may be seeing a 30% contraction in our economy, and I cannot overstate the degree of economic adversity. In relative terms, it will be the most challenging period in Alberta's economy since the Great Depression of the 1930s. I do not believe that the right response in the midst of that economic crisis is to impose a new tax. Now, when we get through all of this, I've said to Albertans that there will be a fiscal reckoning. Our government had committed in our platform to have a tax reform panel at some point during our mandate. So that will be a debate that Albertans will have in the future. But right now our focus is on gradually reopening the economy from the pandemic and doing everything we can to protect the financial security of families and job creators.
Have you heard any more from the federal government about help for the oil sector? I know they'd introduced a number of programs that they say small and medium-sized, businesses can apply for. Nothing for the big oil companies yet. Do you think that that's coming?
Well, Minister Morneau said, I think 3 to 4 weeks ago, that a major package would be coming within hours or days. We're now moving past a month since that commitment was made. We continue to have discussions with the federal government. This past week, I was on the First Minister's call with the Prime Minister, and once again, with the support of premiers from across the country, emphasized how critical it is that we ensure a future for the largest subsector of the Canadian economy, our oil and gas sector, which creates directly and indirectly 500,000 jobs. It is our largest export industry. It is responsible for $370 billion of government revenues over the past 18 years alone. And I've reminded the Prime Minister that in the global financial crisis in 2008, Alberta was there for the rest of Canada. We helped to keep our economy moving, and we had a national government that ensured a future for the Central Canadian auto manufacturing sector. This industry, this province, as well as Newfoundland and Labrador and Saskatchewan, we need the same kind of response to ensure a future for those 500,000 Canadians whose employment depends on the energy sector.
Premier, we just have a few moments left, but I wanted to ask your reaction to the Liberal government's announcement here in Ottawa about new restrictions on firearms.
The significant majority of guns that are used in the commission of crimes in Canada are smuggled in from the United States. And so I think the federal government is missing the target by focusing on law-abiding owners, and instead they should take that effort and those resources and focus on stopping the widespread smuggling of illegal firearms across the Canada-US border. And so we're very disappointed that they're in the middle of this pandemic, I think, focused on the politics of this and going about it in the wrong way, crack down on the smugglers, not on law-abiding Canadians.
Well, that's all the time we have together today. Thank you so much for joining us, Premier.
Thank you.